Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're going to tackle a question that's on a lot of investors' minds.
Oh, yeah.
Is Amazon a good fit for your portfolio? To
Right.
get to the bottom of this, we've
Right.
got financial reports, news articles, and even a bit of Wikipedia for some historical context.
Wow. Sounds like we're really going deep.
Definitely a deep dive. So let's kick things off with the most basic question.
Okay.
How is Amazon actually doing financially? Like in 2023, they hit a whopping $574.8 billion in revenue.
Yeah. That's
It's mind-boggling.
it's a massive number, right? And it just shows you the scale that Amazon operates at.
Absolutely.
But it's important to remember that revenue comes from a variety of different sources for Amazon.
Right, not just selling stuff online.
Exactly. So while their online stores still bring in the lion's share, over 40%,
Wow.
Amazon Web Services, or AWS as you might have heard it,
AWS.
represents a significant and growing portion of their business.
Yeah, I've heard that AWS is kind of a big deal.
Oh, it's huge. It contributed nearly 16% of Amazon's total revenue in 2023.
Okay, so even though I read that AWS growth slowed down a bit in the third quarter of 2024,
Yeah, that's true.
they're still a major player in the cloud computing market.
Oh, absolutely. They're the dominant force right now.
Really? How does that compare to the other big players?
Well, AWS currently holds a commanding 33% market share.
Wow, it's a lot.
That dwarfs Microsoft Azure, which sits at 21%,
Hmm.
and Google Cloud at a mere 10%.
Oh, wow. Okay, so they're way ahead.
Way ahead. And, this kind of market dominance translates into some serious pricing power.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And ultimately profitability, which makes AWS a key driver of Amazon's overall success.
So it's not just their online retail empire that's making them money.
Definitely not. AWS is a powerhouse in its own right.
Okay, so they're crushing it in the cloud.
Okay.
But what about competition in their core retail business? Because it seems like they're everywhere, but are there any real challengers emerging?
That's a good question. And while Amazon is definitely the king of online retail,
Wait,
both in the US and globally, there is one company that's making strategic moves to close the gap.
okay, who's that?
Walmart.
Really? Walmart.
Yep, they're investing heavily in building their own logistics and fulfillment network.
Oh, to try and rival Amazon's speed and efficiency.
Exactly. They're aiming to offer a comparable experience to Prime members.
So this could potentially impact Amazon's profitability in the long run.
It's certainly a valid concern. Increased competition could put pressure on margins.
Right.
But on the other hand, Amazon is notoriously agile and proactive.
Yeah, they always seem to be one step ahead.
They're constantly innovating and pushing into new areas.
Like what?
Well, for instance, they just launched their first fully automated robotics facility.
Oh, wow. Robots doing all the work?
And they're rapidly expanding their network of highly efficient Gen 12 robotics facilities.
So they're betting big on automation.
It seems that way, and while it might boost their efficiency and profitability, it also raises some concerns about job displacement.
Yeah, that's a really important point to consider.
Absolutely. Investors are paying more attention to these social implications now.
It's not just about the bottom line anymore.
Exactly. It's about how those profits are generated.
So how does Amazon balance this push for automation with their responsibility to employees and the communities where they operate?
Well, that brings us to another crucial factor,
Okay, what's that?
ESG,
ESG.
which stands for Environmental, Social, and Governance.
Ah,
And it's becoming a major focus for investors who want to align their investments with their values.
so how does Amazon stack up in terms of ESG?
That's a complex question and one that we'll explore in more detail in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, so stay tuned for that.
But it's important to remember that a company's approach to ESG can have a big impact on its long-term sustainability,
Right.
its reputation, and ultimately its stock price.
Okay, so ESG is definitely something to keep in mind.
Absolutely.
Now let's talk about Amazon's valuation. I know the TipRank's 12-month forecast is pretty optimistic, but does that mean the stock is actually undervalued?
Well, valuation is a tricky thing. It depends on so many factors.
Like what?
Future growth projections, market conditions, competitor analysis, you name it.
Right, it's not just a simple number.
Exactly. The key question for you as an investor is whether the current price
Okay.
accurately reflects Amazon's long-term growth potential.
Right. Do you believe they can continue to innovate and overcome these challenges?
Exactly.
It's about looking beyond just the numbers and considering the bigger picture,
I agree.
which includes their strategic acquisitions. Like,
Yeah.
remember when they bought Whole Foods back in 2017?
Oh, yeah, for a cool $13.7 billion.
That was a bold move.
It was, and more recently there have been rumors about further investment in Anthropic an AI startup.
Oh, yeah, on top of the $4 billion they've already committed.
Exactly. It seems like they're really doubling down on AI.
So they're definitely investing in the future of AI.
No doubt about it.
But let's not forget about their already massive services business.
Right. Amazon Prime Video, Amazon Music, Audible.
The list goes on and on.
It's incredible how many different services they offer.
And subscription services like Prime have become a vital revenue stream for them.
Oh, absolutely. They represented 7% of their sales in 2023.
Wow, that's significant.
It is, and it shows how they're diversifying beyond just retail.
It's amazing how they've managed to expand into so many different areas.
Yeah, they're a true behemoth.
But with that massive scale, over 1.5 million employees globally, and this huge logistics network,
Right.
what about the criticism surrounding Amazon's economic impact?
That's a valid point, and we can't ignore the concerns about their impact on small businesses
Right?
and traditional retail, as well as the ongoing debates surrounding working conditions in their warehouses.
It's important to weigh those potential downsides against the undeniable growth and innovation they've achieved.
Absolutely. It's a complex equation.
And let's not forget about the regulatory and legal challenges they're facing.
Oh, yeah. They've been battling regulators over antitrust and worker safety concerns.
And facing legal action related to counterfeit goods and data privacy.
All of these are substantial risks that investors need to consider seriously.
Because any negative outcomes from these challenges could have a significant impact on their stock price.
Definitely.
Okay, so with all of these considerations in mind,
Yeah.
what about dividends? Does Amazon reward its investors with a steady stream of passive income?
Well, not in the traditional sense. Amazon actually doesn't pay dividends currently.
Oh, so they don't.
No, their focus has been on share buybacks instead.
So what does that mean for the average investor?
Essentially, by repurchasing their own shares, Amazon reduces the number of outstanding shares,
Okay.
which can potentially boost the value of the remaining shares.
So instead of getting a dividend check,
Right.
investors are essentially betting on the stock price going up,
That's the idea.
driven by these share buybacks.
Good.
So the question of whether Amazon is a good fit for your portfolio really comes down to your investment strategy.
Exactly. And your tolerance for risk.
Do you believe in Amazon's long-term growth potential enough to forego that immediate income from dividends?
That's the million-dollar question.
That's a lot to think about. And we haven't even touched on their ESG performance yet.
Oh, right.
We'll delve into that and more in part 2 of our deep dive.
Stay tuned.
Until then, keep thinking critically about what matters most to you as an investor.
Absolutely. Welcome back to the deep dive, where we're continuing our deep dive into Amazon and trying to figure out if this tech giant deserves a place in your investment portfolio.
Right. So last time we covered Amazon's really impressive financial performance.
Right.
Their kind of dominant position in online retail
Mm-hmm.
and cloud computing with AWS,
Mm.
and then also kind of the competitive landscape they're facing.
Yeah, we talked about all of that.
We also touched on their pretty ambitious automation strategy.
Yeah.
And how that connects to this increasingly important area of ESG investing. So let's dive a little deeper into those ESG considerations, shall we?
Let's do it.
Okay, so for anyone who needs a refresher, ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance.
Right.
And it's becoming like a really big deal for investors who want to make sure their investments align with their values.
Yeah, definitely.
So when we talk about Amazon, what are some of the key ESG factors that come into play?
Well, there are a bunch on the environmental side. There's their carbon footprint, which is pretty huge given their massive logistics network.
Right, all those delivery trucks and planes.
Exactly. And their data centers, which use a ton of energy.
And then there's also the waste management issue, right?
Yeah.
From all the packaging and product returns.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
And on the social front, we already talked about the potential impact of automation on jobs, but there are also those ongoing concerns about working conditions and wages in their warehouses.
Yeah, that's been a major point of contention.
And then when it comes to governance, there are questions about their market dominance, data privacy practices, and how they handle antitrust scrutiny.
All important stuff.
So it sounds like Amazon faces some pretty significant ESG challenges. How are they addressing these concerns?
Well, they have made some notable commitments like their climate pledge, which aims to achieve net zero carbon emissions by 2040.
Okay, that sounds promising.
They're investing in renewable energy and electric delivery vehicles.
So trying to make their operations more sustainable?
Exactly. But critics argue that they need to do more.
Especially when it comes to labor practices and worker treatment.
Yeah, that's a recurring theme, and investors are increasingly putting pressure on Amazon to improve transparency and accountability in those areas.
So it's a dynamic situation. How effectively they respond to these challenges
Hmm,
will likely impact investor sentiment and ultimately their stock price.
no doubt.
So for someone who's like thinking about investing in Amazon, how can they assess their ESG performance? Are there like reliable resources or metrics they can look at?
Yeah, definitely. There are several ESG rating agencies and research firms that evaluate companies based on a range of factors.
Okay, can you give us some examples?
Sure, like MSCI Sustainalytics, Bloomberg ESG are a few that come to mind.
Okay, so those are good starting points.
You can also review Amazon's own sustainability reports and disclosures
Okay, yeah, makes sense.
to get a sense of their commitments and progress.
So doing your research is key when it comes to ESG investing.
Absolutely.
But let's shift gears for a moment and talk about something we haven't really addressed yet.
Okay, what's that?
Amazon's potential vulnerabilities. We've highlighted their strengths, but every company has weaknesses.
True.
So what are some of Amazon's potential Achilles heels?
Well, one potential vulnerability is their reliance on consumer spending.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
If there's an economic downturn, people might cut back on discretionary purchases,
Right.
which could impact Amazon's retail sales.
They're not immune to economic cycles. And we've already talked about the increasing competition in online retail, particularly from Walmart. Are there other competitive threats on the horizon?
Yeah, there are these specialized e-commerce platforms popping up in various sectors like fashion, beauty, home goods.
Oh, interesting.
They're catering to niche markets with like a really curated experience
Right.
that Amazon's vastness might not be able to replicate.
So they might face challenges in maintaining their dominance as consumers look for more specialized shopping experiences.
Potentially. Yeah.
What about risks related to their international operations? They've expanded aggressively into a lot of global markets.
Right. Well, international expansion always comes with risks.
Yeah, like what?
Regulatory hurdles, cultural differences, currency fluctuations.
All those things can make things complicated.
Definitely. And Amazon has actually encountered challenges in some markets, like India and China,
Oh, interesting.
where they face strong local competition and complex regulatory environments.
So navigating the global landscape is no easy feat.
It's definitely a challenge.
And we've already touched on the regulatory scrutiny they face in the US and Europe. Could you elaborate on those regulatory risks and how they might impact Amazon?
Sure. So antitrust concerns are a major area of focus for regulators.
Okay.
They're examining whether Amazon's dominance gives them an unfair advantage over competitors,
Right.
potentially stifling innovation and harming
It's
consumers.
a big debate.
It is, and there are also ongoing investigations into their labor practices and data privacy policies.
Well, those are some pretty serious issues that investors need to be aware of.
Yeah, any negative outcomes from these regulatory challenges could really impact their profitability and growth prospects.
Okay, well, let's switch gears back to a more positive note.
Sounds good.
What are some of the exciting growth opportunities that could drive Amazon's future success?
Well, one area with immense potential is artificial intelligence, or AI.
AI, right?
Yeah.
We talked about their investments in Anthropic.
Exactly. But AI is integrated into pretty much every aspect of their business now.
So it's not just a standalone investment for them, it's a core part of their strategy.
Exactly. They're using AI to enhance efficiency, improve customer experience, develop new products and services.
And with all the data they have and their technological capabilities, they're in a good position to be a leader in this whole AI revolution.
I think so too. Another area with huge growth potential is healthcare.
Oh yeah, healthcare, that's a massive market.
It is, and Amazon has been making some big moves there with their acquisition of PillPack,
Right.
the launch of Amazon Pharmacy, and the development of their Amazon Care telehealth platform.
So their entry into healthcare could be a game changer.
Potentially, yeah.
What other industries are they looking at for potential disruption?
Well, they're exploring opportunities in grocery delivery with Amazon Fresh,
Okay.
financial services with Amazon Pay,
Hmm.
and even space exploration with their Blue Origin venture.
Wow, they really have their hands in everything.
They do.
So it's clear that Amazon has no shortage of ambitious plans for the future. But as we've discussed, they also face some serious challenges and risks.
Mm-hmm.
So the question remains, is Amazon a good fit for your investment portfolio?
It's a tough question, and there's no easy answer. We've explored their financial performance, competitive landscape, ESG considerations,
Right.
potential vulnerabilities, growth opportunities. It's a lot to digest.
Yeah. You've given us a lot to think about.
Hopefully in a good way.
In our final part, we'll wrap things up by connecting all these pieces together and offering some key takeaways for investors who are trying to figure out whether Amazon deserves a spot in their portfolio. All right, so welcome back to the deep dive. We've spent this entire episode dissecting Amazon,
Yeah.
looking at their strengths, their weaknesses, everything between, really trying to get a good picture.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We looked at their financial performance, of course, their dominance in e-commerce and cloud computing with AWS, and the competitive pressures that they face. And then we dug into their ESG performance, some potential vulnerabilities, and all those exciting growth opportunities that might be ahead for them.
Right. A lot to consider.
So let's bring it all together now and try to answer that big question. Is Amazon a good fit for your investment portfolio?
The million-dollar question.
It is.
But before we jump into that, I think it's important to reiterate that this isn't personal financial advice.
Right. We are not financial advisors.
Exactly. Investing is a personal decision. What's right for one person
Right.
might not be right for another.
Absolutely.
Your investment choices should really align with your individual financial goals, risk tolerance, and time horizon.
So with that disclaimer out of the way,
Right.
let's recap some of the key factors we've discussed.
Okay. Sounds good.
So Amazon, they have this impressive track record of growth and innovation.
Oh, yeah. They've been a disruptor from day one.
They're a dominant force in e-commerce and cloud computing, and they're constantly expanding into new markets and industries.
Seems like they never slow down.
They don't. But they also face some serious challenges,
Oh, of course.
like increasing competition, regulatory scrutiny, and then those concerns about their ESG performance.
All valid points.
And then there's the question of their valuation.
Huh.
Some analysts say they're overvalued. Others see even more room for growth.
That's a bit of a debate.
It is. And then you have to remember their decision to prioritize share buybacks over dividends
Right.
means investors are essentially betting on that stock price appreciation
Yeah. Hoping for those gains.
rather than receiving that kind of steady income stream from dividends.
Right. So no passive income from Amazon.
Not at the moment. So where does all this leave us?
Well, if you're a growth-oriented investor with a long-term perspective and you can handle some risk,
Right.
Amazon might be a really compelling addition to your portfolio.
Okay, so if you're in it for the long haul.
Exactly. But if you're more focused on stability, income generation, or you really prioritize companies with a strong ESG track record,
Right.
Amazon might not be the ideal fit right now.
It really depends on your individual circumstances and goals.
Exactly.
So at the end of the day, the decision is yours. We encourage you to do your own research.
Yes, definitely.
Consider your own investment philosophy. And if you need to, maybe consult with a financial advisor.
A professional can always offer personalized guidance.
Exactly. So we hope this deep dive has given you the knowledge and insights you need to make an informed decision about Amazon.
That's what we aim for.
And remember, the world of investing is always changing.
Oh, yeah.
So stay informed, stay curious, and keep exploring.
Keep learning and happy investing, everyone. Thanks for